Hello everybody. Did you know that when bass are on a shallow water pattern, most fishermen automatically believe that the fish are right up against the shoreline? Well, let me tell you, this is not always the case. True, they may be shallow, but not always holding tight against the bank. It's also true that you can cast the shoreline and pick up a bass or two, one here and possibly one there. But to find shallow water concentrations of bass and possibly catch 10 fish on 10 casts, you must spend the time and search out the shallow areas for irregular features close to the shore, but next to deeper water. Now, when I say deeper water, I'm not referring to 20 to 30 feet change in depth. Only a 5-foot depth change can be enough. However, if the terrain drops even faster, it's going to be a whole lot better. Tell you what, let me take you offshore a little ways in shallow water areas and show you what I'm talking about. Just before and just after the spawn, and before bass leave the shallows, they love to select those shoreline areas close to deeper water. Areas such as secondary points, secondary banks, extended flats, deep shorelines with cover, just to mention a few. And by studying a good map of the lake you fish, you'll be able to find most of these places. Now, I'll be the first to admit that all the lakes you fish won't have a good map, or even a map at all. Today, I'd like to devote this show to fishing these little shallow, out-of-the-way places that hold numbers of bass year after year. And something else I'd like to mention is that in many bodies of water, places like this can hold bass almost year-round. It's in the grass. Tugging grass. Whoa! Woo! It's a nice one. Come here, big boy. Checking them hooks out in your face. Wow. There we go. 1, 2 in you, didn't you? Ooh, I'm not going to put my pliers there. You pretty. Yes, you are. Say bye. Tell you what, let's spend a few minutes and let me show you some of my favorite shallow water areas to fish. Now, I realize all the locations you'll see in the upcoming illustrations won't look exactly like what we've got here, but, oh, wait a minute, one will. But some of these will give you an idea of what to look for when you get out on your favorite lake. These are all key locations for bass to use, and each one is very unique in the fact that each one of these shallow structural features is located close to that all-important ingredient, deeper water. Now, keep in mind that for any form of structure to be good and hold numbers of fish, it must be associated with deeper water. Deep water close by gives a bass an escape route, and bass instinctively will select and use those places where deep water exists. Now, let's look at this illustration. As you can see, the actual shoreline is basically straight, which indicates no noticeable changes in contour. But this can be misleading. It's true, by reading the visible portion of the shoreline, you'll be able to detect that the underwater portion changes as the shoreline changes, but not always. Here, a submerged shallow 5-foot bottom runs the entire length of the bank, but out from shore a very short distance, a depression forms, which can be an excellent location for bass to congregate along. Areas of this type are not all that common, but if you can locate one along a shallow shoreline, you've found a tremendous place. Oh, man. There he is. They come off that ridge, it's flying this way. Just getting it. Oh, look at here. You got hooks all in his big old face. You through? Ooh, you don't like it. Come on back here, baby. Say hello. Let's take a look at this illustration, what we're fishing today. It looks something like this. We've got a long, shallow ridge that is part of the 3-foot interval line that borders this large pocket. It runs over 75 yards, slowly tapering down to 7 feet, dropping off into a 12-foot gap, then jumping back up on another stumpy ridge that runs a good distance. Now, if you'll notice, the concentration of bass are located where the two ridges join in close together, where the 12-foot gap is located. There's also a lot of cover at this area also. And what we're doing here is just fan casting from one ridge to the other ridge and back and forth. And I know what's happening. We're hanging a fish and we're pulling the fish off of that ridge in this clear water. And then what they're doing, they have to relocate and they're moving back up on it. Yeah, baby. Where are you going? So that big old fish right there. Woo! Woo, that's a nice looking fish. Boy, boy, boy. How you doing? God. Alrighty, let's get back and let me show you a few more of my favorite types of shallow shorelines to fish. Along this section of bank, we see a 5-foot interval line, which isn't that attractive, but between the 5-foot interval and the 10-foot interval, the floor of the lake rises 5 feet, forming a high spot or hump. Now, any high spot can produce a few bass because it's an irregular feature, and it's a place for fish to move up on and feed. But when fishing terrain of this type, it's always best to find the section along it that changes depth rapidly, because that's the area that will attract and hold the majority of bass. With a little time on your part, you'll be able to pinpoint places of this type and return later, and possibly catch more bass than you'd ever imagine. Not only today, but for months and years to come. And this is why it's so doggone important to learn as much as you can about the body of water you fish, even if it means sacrificing a day of fishing and spending a day just looking for those shallow water hideaways. Okay, we've been showing you some diagrams. You want to see a few more? Good. Let's look at this one. It's a very common form of real estate, and it's found along many shorelines. A shallow 5-foot section of bank changes quickly to a deeper section. Look how far the 5-foot interval is from the shore to the left. Now, let's follow it to the right. Here the intervals run in close to the bank, forming a deeper shoreline. Along this deeper section, a submerged point extends out. This is an ideal form of structure simply because it gives the bass a location to move up on and feed with deeper water close by. Plus, places of this type attract and hold bait fish that migrate up and down the deeper shoreline. That fish right out there. Oh boy. Woo! You got grass on you. Woo! You got water on me. Wow. You're not ready, are you? Turn around. Let's see what I can do. Right here. that one.
Before we crank up and get out of here, let me say just one more thing, and then I'll shut up, I promise. If you've learned nothing else in the past 30 minutes, never forget that for a spot, place, or area to be good and hold concentration of bass, deeper water must be close by. And using a lure like we've been using today, you can cover lots of water with it quickly and effectively. Sure hope our show today has been interesting and educational enough to get you up close and personal with the shoreline. We sure hope so, and we hope to see you again next week. Until then, catch one for me.
I've gone fishing with Bill Dance today.